Listeners, quick message before we get into today's podcast. Ben will be hosting, don't worry. We want to thank you guys for the FBAs. If you don't know, they were the Football Blogging Awards. We were really pushing for you guys to help us out. Hundreds of you voted over on Twitter. Massive thank you to you all. We don't know kind of if we've been nominated or not yet. We find out, I believe, at the start of next month. But just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who did show their support. Loads of people over on the Twitter sphere. And thank you to all those people. Any additional messages, boys, or have I covered it all there?
Yeah, thanks. If we win, we'll dedicate it to you, the listeners. So,
and I'm the one going. I'm the one going to the awards. So
I might be coming too. But anyway, let's not talk about the awards. Let's get into the podcast. I can't run the theme tune.
You fucked it, Jack.
There we go. There we go.
So good, so well. Listeners, hello, welcome back to ForTheFans, back again, and we're back to our regular threesome. That sounds strange. Hi Callum, hi Jack. We'll start with Keno. How are you, Keno?
Very good, Ben. I don't like the sound of the regular threesome, but you know.
No, sorry, but we are back as a trio after Proudie filled in last week. Did a very good job actually.
And he lost the feature for me.
He did do a good job. Back to normality, and sort of because you were ill, weren't you, Ben, 2 weeks ago? So we are.
Yeah. I get to have control over Jack again, which I do appreciate. I do enjoy. Speaking of Jack, hello, Mr. Peachman. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Fresh.
Good. How was your trip?
Fresh from his special mission.
Yeah. How was your time away? Did you have fun?
It was. Infiltrated the BBC. You know how it is.
Did you have any lovely little bits of cake or anything like that?
The pasta was good. The pasta was good, and the haggis was nice in the canteen.
Did you have anyone there to review said luxuries? Or
Greg Wallace wouldn't sit with me.
Ah, that's a shame. Okay, well, if you want to know what all that's about, tune in, BBC 4, December. Can I say that?
You can, yeah.
Done it. Right then, let's crack on with the show. And I'm back in charge of the feature. Now, Keno has a 4-2 lead in the feature scoreboard, Jack. Proudie filled in for you last week, didn't get the points on the board. Keno nipped in there and won once again. And you might remember a few weeks ago I took loads of points away from you because of your cock-up. So, good job, I'm back, really. And because of that, Jack, I will start with you. But the feature this week is who has more Premier League appearances.
Oh,
dun, dun, dun. It's going to be between two names, and you have to tell me who's got more appearances. This toys with the mind, this sort of game. So yeah, feature number one. Right, you both understand the rules? Yep.
I mean, it's a fairly straightforward feature as far as features go, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
not the most complex that you've done.
I will say there's not that much more to it, but fun all the same. Right then, Jack, we're going to start with you. Players are Phil Neville and Gary Neville.
Oh,
who has got more appearances? In the Premier League, this is, sorry. I should clarify, Premier League appearances. Yeah, let me clarify that one more time. Premier League appearances.
Now, I think that's harder than you initially think, actually.
Well, that's why I'm in charge of the feature.
No, Premier League. Might be Phil at Everton, because he did get quite a lot of appearances there, whereas Neville was phased out. But Phil's younger. He didn't make the movers soon, though, so he didn't start as many. I'm going to go with Gary.
Okay, Gary Neville, 400 appearances.
I'm not
Gary
confident.
Neville. Phil Neville, 505 appearances. 105 more appearances.
It's a lot. That's 3 seasons worth of appearances more.
Yeah, it's a lot more, isn't it?
That is a lot.
More. There we are then.
Mind has been played with, what can I say?
Yeah, there you are, beaten.
Instantly.
Keno, over to you. Who has got more appearances in the Premier League? Is it Ledley King or Jan Vertonghen?
Again. How long's Vertonghen been here now? I think.
This is the game, listeners. This is why it's a struggle for Callum. He's got to use his memory.
3, maybe 4 seasons in which he's probably played 30
Injury hit Ledley King, remember, as well. That's why I've thrown him in there.
So I think a number for Vertonghen's probably just pushing maybe 120, something like that. Now, but I would still think that Ledley King in his 10-year career probably made more than 100 appearances or so in the Premier League. So I'm going to go King.
Yeah, I went curveball.
Yeah.
If Vertonghen 124.
Oh well, I was almost bang on.
Yeah, Ledley King 268.
Yeah.
Quite a lot more actually for Ledley King.
I was really hoping you were playing Keno then, and Ledley King was going to have less.
That would be quite incredible if
that's
he
what
had
you
less
would have
than
done.
120.
Yeah, that'd have been good, wouldn't it? Right, Jack, back to you. Two England right backs, Nathaniel Clyne and Kyle Walker. Who has more Premier League appearances?
Kyle Walker
is correct. 166 to Nathaniel Clyne's 133. So they're relatively close, those two. Not too much between. They're only a year in age as well, so it's basically an extra year that Kyle Walker's had.
And
that
Clyne,
was kind of my thinking.
And Clyne came up with Palace, didn't he, as well? So
he did, yeah. Right, over to you, Callum.
It's quite a snappy feature, isn't it, Ben? It's quite.
Yeah, it is. So, we're getting through it. A lot to talk about today. Hey, Sam. Right, Daniel Sturridge or David De Gea?
Not even closely relatable players. So I'm...
No, they're not. But will they be close in appearances?
So again, De Gea, I think 4 years at United, and he had that one season.
Might more than that, actually.
And he had the one season where he was alternating all over the place with Lindegaard. So, but he'll have played every game since, pretty much. So
Daniel Sturridge.
Again, I think De Gea's sort of between 120 and 160. And I think Sturridge...
we don't need to know the numbers, we just need to know who's...
Yeah, I just want an answer,
I want to impress people with my knowledge, so I'm going to say Sturridge. I think not as close.
David De Gea has 171 appearances.
Oh,
that's more than the bracket that Callum said.
More than I expected.
Well impressed.
Daniel Sturridge has 170 dead. So David De Gea has one more appearance than Daniel Sturridge, which I think's crazy, considering Sturridge just seems to be a Premier League player for a long time. Obviously, again, injury hit. Right, Jack, back to you. Ready?
Yeah.
Jack Wilshere or Raheem Sterling?
Raheem Sterling. No, wait.
He said it.
He was very confident.
No.
It's a possible answer.
It's a possible... Thank you, yeah.
No problem.
I'm going to do Callum Keane here. Jack Wilshere, 23, 24 now?
23.
24, I think.
I mean, you both argue over it. He's probably 23 and a half.
I think he's 24. I'll check, though.
3/4.
I'll check, because you'd be cheating. Yeah, 24.
Okay.
January the 1st, for anyone that's interested.
There you go. I'm going to get him a card ready. When Big Ben strikes 12, I'll be thinking of Jack Wilshere.
I shan't be striking 12. Can we have a name, please?
I'm going to stick with it. Raheem.
Young Raheem.
Jack Wilshere, 121 appearances.
That's not that many.
No, but I'm not sure.
Raheem Sterling, 132 appearances.
Oh my God.
There we go.
Sterling has more appearances in the Premier League than Jack Wilshere.
Now that is crazy to me. That is.
I mean, I knew it, so it's not crazy to me.
It's a great feature. You guessed it, and then you panicked. We're going to go a little bit old school here, Keno. So good luck with this one. Who has more appearances in the Premier League? Is it Diego Costa or Arjen Robben? Yeah, that's right. Curveball. Both Chelsea,
I can
man.
hear the panic in his
Diego Costa or Arjen Robben?
I think it is Diego Costa.
Diego Costa has 59 appearances.
I don't think it is.
Chelsea.
I think Robben's got more.
Arjen Robben has 67 appearances.
These are all so tight as well.
Yeah, 8 in it there. Robben just...
I knew
Costa
it.
Will... Did you, Jack? Well done, mate.
Thank you,
Well
Jack.
done.
Have a bonus
See,
point.
let's see if you know this one. Nicholas Anelka and Michael Owen.
Anelka.
Yeah, that's a...
Michael Owen has 326 appearances.
I'm worried.
Nicholas Anelka has 364 appearances.
Another
point.
I knew it.
So that's who was worried, listeners. I don't think we heard the worry. Right then, we're going to come over back to Keno. Keno, Vincent Kompany or David Silva?
Definitely Silva.
David Silva, 191 appearances. Vincent Kompany, 220 appearances.
Definitely David Silva, though.
So no points.
I'm enjoying this week's feature, can I say?
Okay, I think we've got two more each left.
What's the scores on the doors?
It's 3 to you, 1 to Keno.
So if I get this, I just need one of my last two.
Yeah, who has more appearances in the Premier League, Jack? Is it Christian Benteke or Romelu Lukaku? Good
question. Good, very good question.
Thank you very much. T-Burton striker.
I've got to go. I want to say Benteke just because I think he played more whilst Lukaku was kind of stuck at Chelsea on the fringes. Yeah, I'll go with Benteke, but I think it's probably very tight.
Romelu Lukaku, 153 appearances. Christian Benteke, 122 appearances, so no points. Lukaku has 30 more appearances than Benteke. Also, Lukaku obviously a lot more appearances than Jack Wilshere, as does most people on this list. Right then, we'll go again.
Sorry, I'm seeing, this is a little peek behind the curtain, I'm seeing some of these replies to our question of the week, which we'll get to, coming through on my phone. And they are already very good, yeah. So
excellent, I look forward to it.
Listen to the end, listeners.
Yeah, listen to the end, listeners, because, Keno's already spoiled what could be happening. Keno, it's over to you here. To stay in the game, who has more Premier League appearances? Is it Cristiano Ronaldo?
I'm not confident.
Cristiano Ronaldo, all very similar in stature. Andy Carroll.
Oh, God.
The fact you don't know straight away for most of these, it proves I've done a quite good job here. I'm relatively pleased.
I'm not high on confidence. I'm going to say Ronaldo.
Ronaldo has 40 more appearances than Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
There you are. He's got 196, Carroll 100.
I mean, that is less than I thought.
Have we got a tiebreaker?
I guess it's a whole season.
Of course we've got a tiebreaker.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Not that it's going to come to it, of course. But
I'm actually not going to do that one because I think one's too easy. We've got two left, though, one each.
No, I'll have the easy one.
Jack, who has got more appearances in the Premier League? Is it Gabby Agbonlahor or is it Gary Cahill?
Oh, dear.
And I will say, yeah, they are both ex-Villa. And I will say that I was surprised. This doesn't really give anything away, but I was surprised at how long Gary Cahill spent at Bolton when I looked it up. I won't say what that means.
I don't think he played a lot of Bolton during the years he was there. I'm going to go with Gabby.
Gary Cahill, 288 appearances.
He's got it.
Keno seems to know that Gabby Agbonlahor has 322.
Which is incredible.
And I win the feature.
And he does.
Just to prove how clever Jack is, everyone, Gary Cahill has the same amount of appearances at Bolton as he has Chelsea as of right on today. Gary Cahill has 130 appearances for Bolton, 130 appearances for Chelsea.
Facts.
So there you are. We've got a couple more. I might as well do them. Keno, this is the one for you to level it up if you had the chance to. It was Ashley Williams or Emil Heskey.
Heskey.
Yeah, by 350 appearances.
Oh, why couldn't I have had that one earlier?
Because it wouldn't have mattered, because Jack would have still won. The tiebreaker was combined. We might as well do this. Combined, how many appearances does Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard have in the Premier League? Closest gets the points, was how I was going to do it. But combined, how many appearances do you think
1,273.
Right, I think it's higher than that. So, I don't know.
No, it must be higher than that. Phil Neville only had
1,275.
Interestingly, Phil Neville had one more appearance than Steven Gerrard.
Okay, now I feel better.
And the correct answer was 1,113 appearances.
So I win. I won anyway. I won the tiebreaker.
So Jack brings it back to 4-3 in the features.
I mean,
so
this
well
has been a complete fix. I think it's 3-0
yes, you're right. When you were in charge was a complete fix, and now luckily I've fixed it. I've recovered the situation.
3-0 in my heart. I have a tally chart on my fridge.
Dream on.
I can believe that. I can believe that. Right then, let's chat about some of the Premier League action. Later in the we'll talk about Sam Allardyce and that, as well as your listener questions, as Keen has already trailed. But yeah, we'll kick things off with the Emirates and Arsenal 3, Chelsea.
We are now.
Would you not like to? I think we should. I think we should talk about Big Sam at the end, because that's when we usually cover it.
We'll save the juicy goss till...
We'll save it till the end. But Arsenal 3, Chelsea 0, and it's... is it fair to say it's unlike Arsenal to do so well against the Chelsea boys?
What?
Jack. Sorry, Keno. Jack.
I saw some stat like Arsenal hadn't led over Chelsea by 3 goals. I don't know if it was at half-time or in a match like in the Premier League era There's some stat, and obviously it's not that surprising when you kind of compare the two sides, but it was just such a weird game, this one, because I feel like going into it, Chelsea had a bit of a point to prove. Arsenal, quite a bit of pressure on them. First kind of game back at the Emirates against one of the big teams since, of course, they kind of got thumped by Liverpool. And they just looked so relaxed, and they just played some really nice football. Obviously, Gary Cahill with a mistake, and he has had a few of those this year. And I feel like this game, it kind of highlighted an issue that I think Chelsea have got, which is at the back. Even with David Luiz, who just didn't... He doesn't like defending. It's the David Luiz I remember being in the Premier League playing for Chelsea.
There are a few things from that, I think. We mentioned Cahill a couple of times already. He has not been... With that sort of unlucky moment at Swansea aside, he has been in very poor form for Chelsea since they started this season. And on Luiz, I think it's indicative of the problem that Conte's faced in that I don't think he's got any of the transfer targets that he probably would have wanted going in there at the beginning of the summer. Maybe Kante was one of them, and they got him fairly early. But I think
sorry, I'll come back to this in a second, but I read a really interesting article on Kante and how he's different at Chelsea to Leicester.
Don't think... Well, I'll come in there actually as well. My turn. I think that Kante doesn't fit, simply. I don't think Kante is the right player for this Chelsea team. When Chelsea won the league in quite terrifying fashion, they didn't have a player like Kante. It wasn't like he was part of the puzzle. They had Fabregas and Matic working well. Now that partnership seems to... I don't know what's happened to it. It seems to have collapsed. Defensively, they don't look as strong. And... In a game against Arsenal, a team that they've beaten, like I think this is Wenger's first win against Chelsea since 2011 or something like that. It's that long ago. I don't really know what's happening at Chelsea. I think you're right when you say he didn't get the targets he wanted, but is that because they weren't in the Champions League? Were players less
potentially
were less excited at going to Chelsea? Like I thought it was almost surprising that Kante went there.
I think the Kante move. As you mentioned, I'm not sure he does fit, but sort of thinking about the reasons behind it, I think Conte already knew that the defence would be a problem for them this year. And I think almost signing Kante, who was at the top of his game, was almost a way to kind of gloss over maybe the holes that they might have had at centre-back, because Kante does so much work in front of those two that I think he might have thought, maybe Kante can fix that problem without us buying a centre-half.
Can I come in now? Because you've just hit the nail on the head with what I was going to talk about.
Statistically, he's not been as good.
Well, Kante for Leicester actually only spent about 12% of the game in front of the back four, and the rest of the time he'd actually be wandering quite all over the pitch. Basically, he'd press out wide a fair bit. At Chelsea, he's very much been limited to playing down the middle. He's been kind of shoehorned into this position where they're kind of treating him like an anchor man of sorts. He's spending a lot more time in front of the back four, and actually at Leicester he was kind of part of this pivot alongside Drinkwater, which just worked quite nicely, and with Mahrez drifting in and going forward quite a lot, it gave Kante room to press out wide and to kind of shift across, whereas he's been forced to play a lot more down the middle this year. And they're almost over-reliant on his defensive qualities in terms of shielding the back four, and actually that was something that almost came naturally to him in the way that kind of Leicester would transition between attacking and defensive phases.
So I think Chelsea's soft spot at the moment is ironically enough kind of where he is. I don't necessarily think he's playing particularly badly, but I think alongside Matic especially, Matic it doesn't seem anywhere near the player like he did when Chelsea won the league. I don't know what's happened to Nemanja Matic. It's very strange. Out wide, it seems to come in like fits and spurts, and it's been highlighted many times now that Eden Hazard isn't one who tracks back as much. I think Willian's relatively good at it on the other side with Ivanovic, but it doesn't seem to be like that. As Piliqueta, Hazard's left side doesn't seem as strong as it needs to be, especially in a Conte team where he wants his winger to protect his fullback, and then eventually, like you saw what happened against Arsenal, he changed the system, didn't he? He went to this. Did he bring Marcus Alonso on? I'm sure he did. Played him on the left hand side, then changed as Piliqueta, brought him on the right hand side. And it's almost as if we're 6 games into the Premier League season. Chelsea don't have European football to sort of try things if they wanted to. They've got a couple of cup games which they always struggled to get through in the League Cup. And to me, Conte doesn't know what his best 11 is. And this is a massive year for Chelsea. Chelsea slip up this year, there are major problems next year and the year after that, because players aren't going to want to come to Chelsea, and more importantly for Chelsea, players aren't going to want to stay at Chelsea.
Well, the mad thing for me is you look at the Chelsea side, and obviously they've started a lot slower than people expected them to. you look at some of the players having the most meaningful kind of roles at their clubs. Lukaku, Mata, and De Bruyne, who's obviously now out injured. Those three players, you'd say, for Everton, United and City have been some of their key players so far this year. Of course, all players who Chelsea have let go in the last kind of 3 or 4 years now. And that seems mad to me, that we're looking at a Premier League where Chelsea, again, they've not got off to the start they'd be looking for. Obviously, plenty of time to turn it around, and it's nowhere near as kind of drastically wrong as it was last year, although the scarily good Crystal Palace are ahead of them at the moment in the league on goal difference. But it seems absolutely mad to me, kind of the situation Chelsea are in, given some of the players they've let go and the roles that they're playing at teams above them now in the table.
Chelsea almost look old and tired, and as you say, they've made so many sort of questionable outward transfers. And we all know that they've got 40 players on loan right now. They've won the Youth Cup, or have been in and around the latter stages of that competition for pretty much like each of the last sort of 5 years. And they obviously have an excellent academy. And it just, as you say, Jack, it's just a bit puzzling as to what is going on in maybe in the director of football role at that club. As to why they keep sanctioning sort of questionable and often overpriced transfers into the first team for these managers. Like, look at some of the players that they bought last year, like Baba Rahman and Gila Bodji and players like that. Yes, kind of Salah, Cuadrado, players like that are sanctioned, those moves, when there is definitely opportunity there to promote from within. And I think for a long time people put it down to actually like a Jose Mourinho problem, in the sense that, he doesn't like blooding younger players. And I think to a certain extent that was true, but we've seen it for so long now in the Abramovich era under many different managers that there must be a systemic thing there that young players just can't be given a chance. And it's puzzling when you see a squad and with players like Matic and Fabregas who just look tired and not half the player that they were 2 years ago when they won the league. And I feel a little bit sorry for Conte in that regard, because we mentioned that he probably didn't get the transfers he wanted. Maybe he's looking at some of these players that are out on loan now, and thinking he would have been fine to promote them. And I wonder how much say he has over that. Really, I do.
Well, interestingly, Chelsea don't have a director of football as such.
Well, they have Emenalo, who
he's a technical director. Yeah. I think that's the phrase he goes under. Which, I mean, what I don't really know.
Well, he's
in charge. His outline has been a scout, essentially.
As far as I know,
in terms of development.
From what I know about the way that Chelsea works, obviously that it's quite a small circle of people at the top who, obviously with Abramovich, and who are in charge of this sort of executive action, and then someone like Emenalo is in charge of this kind of lone enterprise that they have. Obviously with Art of Vitesse Arnhem in tandem with that. But it just seems like they're lacking a bit of direction with the manager, working together. And you look at other clubs around the league, even slightly lower down, Tottenham, Southampton, places like that. Chelsea could really benefit from a system like that, and they promote from within. And they've never done that under Abramovich, which is odd, really.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what Chelsea's best system is at the moment. I don't think they necessarily have one.
Yeah, we should talk about the game and how that...
It's in stark contrast to how they started the season as well. They started so well, and now they're kind of tailing off. As for Arsenal, though, I mean, I've said before, they've not won this fixture since 2011, but I must say, across the whole pitch, I thought they were brilliant. And I've not been able to say that about Arsenal against one of the big sides for a while.
The second goal, Walcott's, which almost was like an immediate kind of double blow really early on. It was such an Arsenal goal of old. Like they always score a goal like that every season. Yeah. And it was just their goal for the season like that. It was such a nice move. And it just tore the Chelsea team to shreds. As much as you want to criticise Chelsea for that kind of goal being conceded, it was just one of those passing moves where I think it's impossible really to contain it. The passing was so rapid, and the way it just kind of fell to Walcott on an absolute plate, the ball to him was incredible from out wide.
Sanchez was very good as the number 9.
That really knocked the stuffing out of Chelsea, I feel like. Because I feel like when you concede a goal through a defensive area like Cahill's, it does play on you a little bit more than if kind of, as a team, you just kind of concede a goal without really anyone being at the forefront of kind of being, to blame. But this Walcott goal, they scored it. And Arsenal just looked so relaxed from then onwards. I feel like if it had stayed at 1-0, it's the kind of game where Chelsea kind of get back into it. They did it a little bit, of course, against Liverpool when they got kind of their goal in the second half. Obviously, Liverpool shut them down from then onwards. But I would have been worried as an Arsenal fan. So to see them get those 2 goals within the first 15 minutes, it just took such a massive weight off the club. Arsenal are a team known for their fans really putting a pressure on the club to succeed. And I feel like this kind of game, a big home game, obviously we talked about before how they lost to Liverpool in another fixture against one of the bigger teams. They would have wanted to set the record straight. Chelsea, not looked amazingly of late. They've slipped up in a few games now. And they just gave the performance they needed to. I thought Ozil was very good. I thought Sanchez looked incredible, really playing ahead of Giroud up top.
Yeah, Sanchez really impressed down the centre. And he had a really good game at Watford playing in that exact same role earlier a couple of weeks ago. And it seems to bring the best out of Ozil, because I feel like when you have a live wire playing ahead of him, so many runs off the ball, it presses and wins it high up the pitch. Ozil, it really sort of switches him on. And I think maybe in those kinds of games, it reminds me a little bit of how Liverpool play, with Firmino in those big games with the false kind of 9. Not quite the same player, but it seems to activate the players in and around him. Like your Ozils, your Walcotts, etc., and Iwobi, who was really good as well. It seems to activate them in a similar way, and that was really clear to see. And Sanchez put in one of his vintage performances. I think he was excellent. The finish with the one-on-one was superb.
It was so composed, wasn't it? Such a big moment in the game.
Exactly.
So many of those you see a player just screw it wide, and then it's forgotten about falling so soon to them.
I mean, we saw another. We'll probably talk about it later. A finish with Aguero. It's exactly what you expect of a player of that caliber. That there were a lot of players at the top of their game this weekend. But I think with my point on Arsenal that I was going to make was that it was only a year ago, almost pretty much to the day actually. It was very close this time last year when they came out and smashed United, and they were 3-0 up inside half time, and it was a really good performance. And so going forward, I'm not really sure how much we can sort of take from this game. It was a great performance. Chelsea weren't great. I think they were bettered in every department on the pitch over the 90 minutes. But it's Arsenal, so who knows how much they can build off this and sort of turn it into anything meaningful going forward.
Well, they're an interesting point now because Coquelin's out for the next sort of 4 weeks, I think 3-4 weeks with an injury, which means Xhaka's probably going to play a lot more, which I think actually Arsenal fans are quite pleased about. I think they've seen the money spent on this player. They want to see a lot more of him. He scored some great goals as well so far this season.
I'd like to see them together.
Are we surprised at the rapid rise of JJ Okocha's nephew?
Is he his nephew? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he is.
Iwobi
is JJ Okocha's nephew. And Alex Iwobi's coming to the side, and I've got to say, I thought, first off especially, looks like one of the most exciting players in the Arsenal team, alongside Sanchez, alongside Ozil. And there's a strong argument to say Iwobi is now overtaken a player like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in terms of what Wenger wants and who he's going to play. I think Iwobi is easily ahead of Oxlade-Chamberlain in the pecking order. 4 starts or 4 appearances so far this season.
I think he gives. It's funny because he's a less of an explosive player as someone like Walcott or Oxlade-Chamberlain, or even Aaron Ramsey, who sometimes plays there and he's he puts the yards in. He's very active. Iwobi sort of drifts and sort of floats in off that left hand side. He's very a lovely player to watch, almost in the same way.
Very composed for someone that's 20.
Yeah, and he's playing,
especially in the Arsenal
he's
side.
Playing with 2 world superstars really in Ozil and Sanchez, and he seems to have just fit into that front 3 perfectly. And like I say, he gives where you do have the sort of the explosiveness of Sanchez and the physicality of Giroud when he's playing and the pace of Walcott, etc. He just adds that balance. And I think while if you were maybe picking a team on paper, you wouldn't have him in the first choice Arsenal 11. Well, maybe you would now, but you certainly wouldn't have done it at the beginning of the season.
I think at this stage, you definitely would. He played a bit last year. He played against Barcelona. Playing against Barcelona.
Maybe you would have now, but while he wouldn't necessarily be the first person you go to, sometimes it just works like that, and he just gives the balance in that front sort of left-hand zone in the channel.
Yeah. I look at one player on the Arsenal side and realize, like you kind of note that he's not on the Chelsea side with Petr Cech. Arsenal suddenly, from having not a massive amount of leadership, I feel like Mustafi and Koscielny do quite a good job of it. So does Petr Cech. I think Cazorla's very important to this Arsenal side, and Sanchez up front too. When you look across the other side, there's not a massive amount of leaders in that Chelsea side. I wonder if that was on the day. I wonder if that was important, just on the pitch especially. I wonder how much that was an influence on Chelsea not having John Terry, which he's been out for a little while now. Outside of him, is Fabregas the next Cahill, Fabregas, and maybe Ivanovic, who I think is giving captaincy on the day. Like, I don't feel like there's that many leaders. There's lots of people looking to someone else for someone to do something, and there isn't anyone to sort of drive them through.
You know what I want to see?
I don't know.
I want to see Chelsea play 3 centre-backs, and I know they've got a few injury problems at the moment, but I feel like David Luiz... I just don't like David Luiz in a 2 centre-back kind of setup.
I feel like we should move on, though. I feel like we've spent a long time on that.
Sort it out.
Let's go to a Wayne Rooney-less Manchester United. We were quite critical of Rooney last week. A lot of people thought we were an anti-Manchester United podcast last week. Pro-Liverpool, anti-Manchester United. I would say that's something to do with the fact one team won and one didn't. I think this week we can be very positive about Manchester United, who, I mean, we've said before, we don't want to see Wayne Rooney play badly, but in terms of wanting to sort of see the Premier League at its most competitive, Manchester United playing well is a part of that, and without him, they looked like a Ferguson Manchester United.
So many great tweets at half-time while they were 4-1 up or 4-0 up.
We did a few, I remember.
Yeah.
We were all over it.
Got that engagement in. I think Mourinho's handled this quite well, actually. While we were criticising him last week for maybe sticking with Rooney, I think that extra week that he gave of playing him, almost it's just very Mourinho. Like, he's demonstrated to the public that I've played him out wide. I've played him as a 9 in the League Cup. I've played him as a 10 behind Zlatan, and look at what's happening. Like, I don't think anyone had a begrudge Mourinho for dropping him at the time he did. And so I think he's handled that in terms of because obviously it's Wayne Rooney. It's a big story when he's dropped, and I forget I couldn't count the number of tweets and news stories when the team news came through on Saturday, all focusing on Rooney. And obviously there's going to be a big backlash if people feel you've dropped him unfairly. I don't think that's the case this time, because I think Mourinho stuck with him just long enough. And now the results are there for all to see. Is how much more urgency that United had, and while I thought Leicester were poor, particularly from set pieces, maybe if they'd have been on their game, it could have been a slightly different score. But I think it still would have been maybe 2-0 by half time, because United looked on a totally different level to the way that they kind of were so sluggish against Watford.
This isn't me having a dig at United. I'm just saying the way that City looked in that first half against United looked that way against Leicester. In that you can't see for the life of you how Leicester are going to win this game, and you can't imagine a Manchester United side playing like that losing that game. We should talk about Paul Pogba, who started the game quite deep, I thought, and we were kind of confused by that. And then he moved forward, and as he kind of moved forward within that first half, it seemed to happen within the first half, United got better and better. When he dictates the play, when he is the focal point, I do think Manchester United look like a side that can win the league. Thoughts, Jack?
They've got to be trying to win the league. I think that's kind of the fundamental thing here, is the fact that we're saying this like it's a surprise, when in reality, given the money they've spent, given the fact Pogba's cost the money they have, you've got to be expecting as a United fan, I feel like, for you to be challenging for the title. And after that game against City, I think there were some massive question marks to be kind of asked over Pogba. Could he work in a 2 centre mid setup? Is he going to be the player that United thought they were getting? And I feel like in this game, he kind of set the records straight a little bit. He really was a guiding light in this game for them. There was a lot more balance, I felt like, to the United side, and he was a little bit more conscious, I think, of what was going on behind him.
It's all down to one player for me, and that was the fact that Ander Herrera was the one playing in front of the back four. And I feel he's almost been quite harshly treated since he signed for Man United, in terms of, I feel like he hasn't got the game time he deserved. And I think that having him play the sort of distributor role in that midfield frees up Pogba so much more, because I think when he plays with Fellaini, who doesn't have the best range of passing, is more of a destroyer, Pogba almost has to do that job himself. And that limits his sort of explosive box-to-box capability that we all know he has. And so with Herrera playing using because he's a fantastically gifted player, he has a fantastic technique and a great range of passing. With Herrera utilising that in front of the back four, you could just see how much it freed him up to go forward, and he knew that he didn't have to sort of be the guy playing between the centre halves and linking the play, because he had a guy doing that for him. And I think the thing that epitomised it for me was the what would have been maybe one of the goals of the season when he dinked it over the top to Ibrahimovic.
Oh yeah, on the volley,
volleyed over, and that, as you mentioned last week, Ben, if you can get those two working together and playing close to one another, it's they're two of the best players in the world, and it'd be very difficult to stop for any team. I think that is
Jack,
the key.
Where does this leave Wayne Rooney? Is the big question.
I have a theory. I think there's another reason why he's actually been playing for United for the last few weeks, and I wonder.
What is
sorry,
it,
no,
Jack?
this sounds like I'm about to get conspiracy mode. I'm not. I actually
fantasy football.
No.
Okay.
I wonder if he has some kind of clause in his contract where he has to play a certain number of games for kind of either sponsorship reasons, because he is the face of kind of United. Despite, formerly being a Nike... Is he still a Nike athlete? Because obviously United are now sponsored by... Well, their kit's made by Adidas.
Yes, he's still...
I'm not sure. Are you suggesting, Jack, that Mourinho's getting it out of the way?
Yes. I think there is quite well known that footballers, some of them will have some kind of agreement where they have to play a certain amount of games in a season to please investors and various other things. And because Rooney is such a highly paid player, because he's such a high-profile player, and to a lot of the sponsors, he is the face of Manchester United... I do wonder if Mourinho really hasn't got a choice sometimes when he has to play him. If there's something else going on there. Because it is something that is known about in football, is the fact there are times where a player will have something written into his contract, which either means he has to play a certain amount of games. And literally, I was thinking about it, this is the only thing I can possibly think of that explains why Wayne Rooney has been playing for United for the last few weeks leading up to this. There's my theory.
Listeners. It's a theory.
It's certainly a theory.
Is it kind of a way now that Mourinho has to manage him in a similar way that Ferguson managed a player like Paul Scholes, in that Rooney can no longer, at this point, expect to play every game. I mean, Paul Scholes had this at the age of 34, 35, but Rooney's at that point now, I feel like, that's how he needs to be managed. He needs to play when they're in a lead, he can come on and try and dictate.
Hello?
Hello?
I'm just, one sec. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'll let them know. Sorry, that was my contact at the FA.
Can we get this, Ben?
Sam Allardyce has offered his resignation just now to the FA, and it's expected to be confirmed later tonight. Sorry.
No way.
Right, so that was you doing a bit. That was you doing a bit.
You cut Ben off mid-flow, but it was worth it.
Wait, you just did a bit there.
Exclusive.
So that wasn't even... I thought you had a serious phone call. I was thinking, picking recording then, won't I?
Well, no, it was a serious phone call, of course. Who would go on YouTube and play a ringtone to themselves?
You said ringtone?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, well, fair
confirmed.
enough. Nice to know this is that Jack's really concentrating on what I'm saying.
Sorry,
there.
it's Paul Joyce. He was on the phone to me.
Cheers,
I had to
Paul.
answer it.
Appreciate that, Paul. Thanks for ruining my afternoon. Thanks, Jack.
Brilliant.
Highlight of the season right there, you prick.
That is one of a defining podcast.
Well, I was sat here thinking, who the bloody hell is this? Why is he going silent? Anyway,
I will now put it back on silent and turn it off.
Why is he keeping this in the podcast? No, I mean, you've done me now, haven't you?
Sorry,
but no, I think he should treat Wayne Rooney like Paul Scholes was the idea that he has to bring him on late in games. That's when he can bring him on. That's when he can play him, and he can't at this point start him games. He either needs to bring Rooney on and transition Rooney into a player that comes on late in games and sees it out for them, not this player that will win them the game but comes on once they've won the game.
I don't think there's any shame or problem with that either, and I don't know why there's the expectation that Wayne Rooney has to start every game. I mean, you mentioned that Scholes, I mean, we've said it so many times, you mentioned that Scholes obviously hit this point about mid-30s. Rooney has so much more football in his legs than Scholes probably did even at that age. And he's almost playing like a 35-year-old player at, just turned 30, 31, because he started so early. And I don't think there's any problem with... and this goes for England as well. You mentioned, obviously, the Allardyce situation. I think this goes for England as well, that it's perfectly fine to use a player, to keep a player like Rooney, who's a huge personality, the glue that binds, the dressing room together a lot of the time, to keep him in the squad. That's fine. Keep him as captain if you want as well, but just to use him sparingly and to kind of squeeze out the last of the fantastic talent that we know he has, and use it to win you games, and don't start him from the off in a big game and have him knackered by 70 minutes, because that doesn't really help anyone.
Do we think this is Wayne Rooney's last club?
No, I think he'll end.
Yeah,
I think he'll end up in either China or MLS.
Oh well,
America maybe. I wonder if at the end of his contract he wraps things up.
I think I agree
feel
with
like
that.
a lot of
guess
people
we'll
would have
see.
said that about Gerrard,
Not sure
and even Lampard to an extent.
Yeah. I completely agree with Gerrard, but I felt like Gerrard felt like he had one more year where Rooney. But Gerrard wasn't not playing for Liverpool really. He was still playing most games, whereas Rooney.
No.
It could be. I mean, it's been one game, but the way in which they played, I don't know how he starts next game. Let's put it that way. Right then, let's go to London Stadium, where it's getting worse and worse for Slavan Bilic. We spoke about it last week, Jack. Did you listen last week, Jack?
I may have done.
Okay, well, did you or not?
Maybe.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so Jack didn't listen last week, so I'll refresh his memory.
Thank you. No, I may have forgotten, so if you refresh.
We spoke a little bit about Bilic and that we thought that if it carries on in the next 5 or so games, that Bilic is going to be a man under threat. If they lose in this kind of manner, without the European football, at home, then it could be sooner. I mean, they've got a game coming up against Middlesbrough, I think it is, next weekend. If they lose that, I think they're at home again, Slavan Bilic has got an international break to save his job, in my opinion, and post that, there are some major issues going on at West Ham. Callum.
I'm not even sure he has the international break.
Charlie Austin.
I think.
We'll come on to it in a minute. I'll give you
The
Southampton.
bane of many managers. We will do. I think that if, like as you say, if they lose to Middlesbrough, I think potentially Gold and Sullivan could choose the international break as a time to find a new man.
There may be one available who they've had before.
Can you imagine
possibly? Or Alan Kirbishley?
Yeah, that's right.
I think he's still Pards might be on the
love
market.
that.
But yeah, I think they could pull the trigger even earlier, really, because it is so bad. It is so bad. What's going on?
We kind of touched. We spoke quite a lot about West Ham last week, but we'll kind of touch on it quickly. I mean, we'll get Jack's thoughts because he, wasn't part of last week.
Wasn't.
I think we kind of agreed that we think the pressure of everything is getting to West Ham as a football club, and it's going all the way around. The fans are getting more frustrated. The players are playing worse. Bilic looks a little bit tactically naive at this point. Like, it's strange the way that West Ham are operating, and the owners look like they're in a situation. Like, I don't know if anyone watched. Did you watch like the West Ham fan TV thing?
I didn't know this was a channel, but I feel like it's the kind of thing I will now binge watch the last 5 weeks worth of football for the next
No, there's, I don't know if you've seen this. It was going around Twitter like the other day that there's a West Ham fan doing a piece to camera, like being interviewed, and another one just comes up and goes, "Don't listen to this guy, he's a prick," and then just walks off, and like pats him on the back and goes, and just walks off. The other guy's like, "All right, mate, go on, walk on, mate, walk on." It's like, it's very strange.
Are you sure
There's
he wasn't
a lot
a
of
Liverpool
animosity.
fan?
No. Well, means,
Yeah,
yeah. Go on, mate. Keep blowing those bubbles. That's right. Was that being better for you? Would you appreciate that? Yeah, but it was. But there's obviously a lot of anger at West Ham. I think even in the background, there's just a fight going on. Like, it's on one level, it's quite funny. On another level, it's quite sad to see West Ham show so much ambition, but not be able to handle the pressure of said ambition.
Well, it's the first time ever they've lost 5 of their opening 6 Premier League games.
So what do you think the issue is, Jack? Do you think it's expectation? Do you think it's Bilic? Are the players simply
I think
not
there's
performing?
a few problems here. I think one is the fact that West Ham performed so well last year, there was this big increase in the expectation. There was even murmurs of a top 4 finish at one point last year. And I feel like going into this year with the new stadium, there was this enhanced ambition, and I think it would have been unrealistic for them to expect top 4. But I imagine there were a few West Ham fans, under their breath thinking maybe, certainly top 6 would have been an aim for them, I think, going into this season. The issue they've really got is they've built a Europa League kind of squad, a squad that can cope with Europe, and then they've not got in Europe. Which in itself, you look at it as a one-off result. Actually, it happened last year. So this isn't a new problem, kind of struggling in Europe and just falling at the first hurdle. But the issue that West Ham have got now is I think they've got 42 first-team players. How the hell do you balance 42 players when you have 38 games in a year? I mean, perhaps it's a saving grace in some ways because you can just constantly rotate your side until you find a winning team. But at the same time, I'm really, really worried for West Ham. And the reason I'm worried is because I feel like if we get to January and they're kind of still 15th or lower, there's going to be a few players who could very easily end up getting poached and snatched from their grasps. I'm thinking the likes of Payet. I think he proved himself last year. It's worth noting that up until last year, he wasn't actually that big of a standout player in kind of the nicest possible way. And we have to remember, he is coming up to the age of 30. So he's not a younger player. I think another player who's been their big shining light this year actually is Antonio. such a workhorse. Last year, got shoehorned into this fullback position. I believe he's played there a few times this season, but he's been, going forward a fair bit too. He's the kind of player I could see going to a Spurs or a United.
Well, we said, I remember having the conversation, I think me and Keno talked about it sort of in depth, that we thought West Ham would be the kind of team, and it proved to be true, that would not struggle against the weaker sides, but do far better against the better sides. Now, this year for West Ham, they're losing all games. It doesn't matter who they're playing against, and that is the real issue, is that if they can't dig in against the big game, like in the big games, in the most important games, then how are they supposed to do that against the lesser teams who have got more to fight for? You think about the teams they've played recently. They played Southampton, who are a team that are under a little bit of pressure, quite a lot of change there. Always seem to play quite well, though. Charlie Austin, obviously, your man, Jack. Coming up next, though, is Middlesbrough. They've got Middlesbrough away, Middlesbrough at home. Middlesbrough are the away team. Go into West Ham, and they'll be looking around thinking, this is a place we can get 3 points from. And Middlesbrough are a team that are trying to survive this season. As much as we might think they might come mid-table or whatever, at the end of the day, they're a team that are trying to survive in the Premier League in their first season back in it.
Yeah.
And that is a tough team to play against if you're West Ham. The game after that, they go away to Palace, and then they have Sunderland at home. Now, that is probably the game, isn't it? The Sunderland at home game, 22nd of October. About a month from now, that could be the game for Bilic.
I will say, looking at West Ham, because they've got such a big squad, they might just find something that clicks, and we might be forgetting about this in a few months. My kind of, I guess, silver lining really for this West Ham side is, if Bilic goes and someone new comes in, I don't know if they have to sign that many players to try and get more out of it. I think it's going to almost take a fresh approach in some ways and just trying something new. I feel like Bilic has tried to kind of run before he could walk with this side. I feel like the entire club has done that
you're spot on
in this last year, because they had such a good year last year, and you have to give massive credit to Payet really for being the difference there. But I think the issue for them this year is they went out, they spent massive money on a player like AU who's now got injured. I think it was £30 million, club record fee. That's a signing which seems mad to me even now, the fact they paid £30 million for Ayew, just because he was okay last year for Swansea, but he wasn't a £30 million player, I don't think. I think that was more, I don't know, maybe the pressure of wanting to sign a big name, because obviously they were looking at Lacazette at one point, and I think that really shows the ambition that they had going into this year, whereas now there's this big uncertainty. And obviously West Ham are a team that at one point were a yo-yo club around 10 years ago now. They were a team who would consider...
Well, not even that. They were in the Championship 4 years ago, wasn't it? 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
2012.
Yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah. So they're trying to become a Champions League club very quickly, but without the players to become a Champions League.
I think they've got the budgets for it, and they've tried to spend like that. But I feel like you look at their team, it's such a bloated squad now. You've got Bilic, who...
It's definitely
he's
something.
stuck in a bit of a rut. You expect to see some changes. Over 6 games to get 1 win as West Ham, that is inexcusable.
It's definitely something. I think you're spot on with the run before you can walk analogy, because to really crack maybe the top 6 or the top 4 even, in a mad year, you really need to have that kind of core. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but with that kind of spine of players, particularly those who have played together for a while, and if you want to make a sustained challenge across the whole year, you do need to sort of grind games at times, and that comes from the sort of character and spirit and the know-how that players get from playing together for a couple of years and under the same system. And I feel like obviously Bilic has only been there for just over a year. I feel they don't have that, maybe that core of players that Bilic really trusts, and that goes to the issue of obviously the 40 players in the squad. I feel like he doesn't have that sort of old guard of players that he can really trust, knows that will kind of marshal the team and get them going when they're facing maybe a goal down or adversity. They don't have that core that sort of develops over time, and that's where they're trying to almost force it with the new stadium and all these big transfers, i.e. good example, and that's basically what they're doing. So I think you're spot on with that run before you can walk analogy. We should talk a little bit about Saints as well.
Sam Allardyce is the favourite. His next job is West Ham. That's the favourite job on the bookies. I just checked that, and then it's Sunderland.
That's amazing. That's great. That's amazing.
Just seeing what jobs he's doing with Sunderland and West Ham, the top 2. So there you go.
That's very funny. That's very, very funny. You should give credit to Southampton, who I doubted at the start of the season. I wondered how good they'd be. They're up there in 9th, which...
I think that's 4 wins in a row now for Poole. Obviously, he started badly and was quite slow starting.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's still 4 wins. They've put them on the bounce.
Yeah,
so
they beat
it's quite
Sparta Prague, Swansea, Palace, and now West Ham. Which is good because I think Southampton are quite a neutral club.
I feel like they're the miracle team.
Yet another
they're the miracle
regeneration.
team in terms of they always seem to get their best players stripped from them, but then still maintain a top half finish in the Premier League without spending a ton of money.
Yeah, I was worried about how many goals to score this year. Obviously, Los Pella relying on Shane Long, Joe Rodriguez, and Jack's best friend Charlie Austin.
5 goals in 7 in all competitions for Chaz. Love him.
Are you concerned that an Allardyce-less England will see Charlie Austin not get his call up?
I'm desperately hoping Neil Warnock comes in and plays him like he did in a QPR system. I've seen
hoping Neil Warnock comes in.
I've seen Warnock linked with St Mirren. Get rid of that. He's still looking for a job. England. Get him in. He'll get the most out of Charlie Austin. We'll get a newer in at centre-back too.
Yeah.
Premier League throwback. Sure. I could see Ben is slowly slumping in his chair, I feel like, at this point.
I have slumped in my chair. I have.
I will say, I shared your concern to Southampton, and I was amazed, actually, in the opening game of the season where Shane Long started and Charlie Austin was on the bench, because I do rate Charlie Austin.
Were you?
I was. But you look at Charlie Austin now, he's got 5 goals in 7 games. He's the only player to score in the League Cup, the Premier League, and the respective European competition out of all
Liverpool 5, Hull 1. Cheers, Jack. Liverpool 5, Hull 1.
Keep talking about Southampton for a bit.
I mean, go on then. Is it Charlie Austin?
Well, no, I was just going to say I've been really impressed with Southampton so far, and they're in 9th at the moment. They're kind of ahead of the teams you expect them to be, but behind the teams you expect them to be behind. If that makes sense, they're very much, I think, where a lot of people would have predicted them to be. And
not where I'd have predicted.
Really?
As I sort of said. What, Southampton?
I thought they'd be okay, if I'm honest.
I thought they'd be bottom 3 at this point. I'm just saying. I thought the bottom 3.
But either way, I think they had a massive, massive void to fill with Pele going out. We've kind of already talked about this. But I feel like they've shown potential going forward. And I feel like that is going to be the difference between them and, say, a few other teams in a similar area. I'm looking at the likes of kind of West Brom.
I could do West Ham.
West Ham.
I could do West Ham as well, though.
Those players lacking a striker. But anyway, yeah. I like Charlie Austin. Get him. I mean, if Vardy got in the England squad last year, Charlie Austin deserves a call-up.
Jack likes
Follow me on Twitter, Charlie.
Who knew?
Don't do it, Charlie.
The Austin Appeal number 2. That's the name of this week's podcast.
Indeed. Don't do that.
Southgate, call up Charlie. Sorry.
I'm going to flick through the rest of the games in order. So and then we'll come on to some Allardyce chat and then some listener questions because we're against the clock here. Bournemouth 1, Everton 0. Everton surprising defeat. They've started the season really well and then have fallen.
Lukaku was my fantasy
captain. That's gone well for you. Stanislas with the goal.
29
Quite
points.
shocking from Everton. Didn't expect that at all. Koeman must be very frustrated to have the results he's had so far this season and then fall to Bournemouth. Great result, though, for Eddie Howe and Bournemouth, who have had quite a tough start to the season, I would say, but have got a great win there against Everton. Liverpool 5, Hull 1. Jurgen Klopp on Monday Night Football was very pleased with his Liverpool side, as was I. Jack, were you pleased?
I was very pleased with Jurgen Klopp. It was one of the best sort of segments of analysis / sort of just general football
I know this is going to
stuff
sound
I've
really
seen all
stupid,
year. I think
and
it's amazing.
Stupid because I'd never thought about it this way.
Are you going back to Charlie Austin?
No.
It's
so logical. I just never really considered it, and it was something that Jurgen Klopp said about letting teams have the ball in the wide areas. Because if a team's out on one wing, they only have half the pitch to play into. And in my head, for some reason, this had never twigged as a thing that when you're in the middle, it's a lot easier to play the ball out. Whereas if you force teams to go to their fullbacks and then press, they've kind of got half the area to play into.
You're right, it is stupid.
I knew. It's just like I never considered logically that actually to let a team have it in the wide area works way better.
Yeah, Adam Lallana got the first. Good to see him score a goal. Then Hull went down to 10 men at that point. It was pretty much game over. Milner with a penalty. Mane scored. Coutinho with a banger. And then Milner with another penalty in front of the Kop. I mean, I feel like people are getting frustrated that we think this is a Liverpool podcast. When they play well, we have to talk about the fact they've played well. And
the bookie's second favourite to win the title at the moment.
That's a bit far.
Behind City.
I mean, that's a bit much. I think Arsenal and Manchester United fans will be annoyed about
Arsenal
that.
third, United fourth in the odds.
Maybe Tottenham as well, actually. Tottenham are currently second.
Unbeaten.
But no, I do think Liverpool playing well, have got an identity, know what they're doing in each game, and teams, I mean, Curtis Davis said it's the hardest game he's played so far this season. it's difficult to play against Liverpool right now, and as a fan of Liverpool, it's bloody fun to watch, and I think that's.
I don't want to get excited. I'm getting flashbacks to 2014.
Yeah, we're just playing well, and I like watching it. That's all it is. Middlesbrough 1, Tottenham 2. Son Heung-min, the future Real Madrid star. That's not. I don't think that's.
I should say, according, I think it's WhoScored.com having down as their best player so far this year in Europe.
What Son Heung-min?
Yeah, based statistically. Yes. There you go. Might be going to La Liga.
Yes, I love that. I'll take that. Got 2 quite quick early goals. Tottenham again. Another win. Put themselves in second place now.
They're doing exactly what they
last season. It's last season all over again Pochettino. For me.
It's they just under the radar, as you said, Jack, unbeaten. They're in second position. No one's talking about them. I think they're like one of the model club for many teams right now into just how to run a football club, how to have a plan in place with your manager and your system. And yeah, it's great. It's really exciting to see a team do that at the top level, because you sort of see, we've seen Swansea and Southampton and teams like that who are really well run, but not quite with the sort of the financial muscle and sort of big club mentality of a Spurs. I know Arsenal fans will slate me for that, but yeah, it's good. I think they'll as you say, they'll be in there in and around.
I think with Spurs,
4.
We'll see how they cope with that in the Champions League when it's in full flow. They've only had one so far. That's going to be
playing tonight, about to kick off in Moscow. So that's a great example of the kind of game that we could see maybe a below par performance at the weekend afterwards.
Yeah, and they've got City on the Sunday, so we'll find out then, won't we? That's going to be a great game, by the way. City versus Tottenham. Middlesbrough got a goal as well. Ben Gibson. I'll just giving a nod. As I say, big game for Middlesbrough next week against West Ham. Stoke 1, West Brom 1. Joe Allen scored a goal. That's nice. I mean, Stoke still haven't won a match yet, but they lost it in the last minute to Solomon Rondon, who's got himself another goal. We said this last week, I think, but he's very important. I think Pradi was getting quite giddy about Rondon.
It was doing it this week. FIFA 17 came out. It was in his ultimate team, and all we could hear was him screaming Rondon at the top of his voice.
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
He's obsessed with Rondon.
I think
there's something going on there. Has anyone investigated that?
No, I will talk to him. We'll get him on next week. Just get a Rondon update. So Joe Allen scored, Rondon with an equaliser. I don't think either team will be that pleased, but I guess an away point for Tony Pulis is like Christmas. So I guess actually when I say that, he probably is quite pleased. Quite an exciting game. At the Stadium of Light, Jermaine Defoe put Sunderland 2-0 up, but it didn't last.
Talking of managers under pressure.
Well, David Moyes is in all sorts of trouble. 6 games gone, only 1 point for Sunderland, because Crystal Palace came back to Kino, and Christian Benteke scored the winner. He's back.
Can I give some praise here to NBC?
I see him score.
Yes.
It's a little bit weird. American broadcaster NBC. Of course, I was watching a completely legitimate stream of the 3 o'clock kickoffs, but when I was in America, yeah, definitely. Not Glasgow. But when they do the end of the games, they have the game that's the focus, the live broadcast.
I know
but
what you're going to say
finishes,
here. Yes.
They go to another game. And I got to see this goal because it went to that game. And I was just like, this is brilliant. It's like, I don't know if you've come across on Sky the Red Zone for American football, where essentially all the games are broadcast live at once. Imagine Gillette Soccer Saturday, except when the games are next time, they actually show the games live on screen. I know we can't have that in England because they're free.
BT have that with the Champions League this year.
Do they? Well, it's just so good. It was the fact that I was like, well, I wasn't going to choose to watch, Sunderland v Palace. Like, no disrespect, but it's not a game that I would have chosen to watch, and I probably wouldn't have flicked it on. But the fact they just did it for me, and I got to see that. I felt like I saw an important moment this weekend, and an important moment perhaps for one Alan Pardew, because I feel like this is a result that they need if they don't want to be in a relegation fight come the end of the year.
Well, yeah, he's arrested the infamous Pardew slide, hasn't he? So, I mean, that's quite impressive in and of itself, because he's never managed to do it before. I've never, no, I have, and it was very reminiscent when that goal went in from Benteke at the end of the kind of atmosphere that I was very used to for the last few years at the Villa. When that equaliser went in, the Sunderland fans, not only was the stadium half empty, but the noise of the boos and the disapproval, you could just hear the groans when that goal went in, did not sound good. For David Moyes, because occasionally the fans will be gutted after a loss like that. But it got very hostile very quickly, and Moyes will have to pull up a lot of trees to sort of right that the way that he seems to be going with the fans. Probably along with Bilic, and I think the most likely to be off for me out of the managers.
Allardyce is waiting. He wants it back. You can just see it happening, can't you? You just see that.
Okay, I've got this image. It's the London Stadium. The lights go off. The door opens. A shadowy figure walks in. A spotlight appears.
Spotlight.
And he just goes, "I'm back, bitches." Andy Carroll smiles and punches the air.
I'll tell you what I'd love. I don't know. Okay, I was touching on Sunderland. You've gone back to West Ham, but I'd love it if Allardyce did a parody of the Pogba. I'm back. That'd be amazing. Can you imagine? And then he dabs. Right. Swansea 1, Manchester City 3. Aguero's back, everyone. So City, another win. They've not lost this season. They've barely conceded. Well, they've conceded a few goals this season, but they look like they're going to win every single game this year. Unbeaten year. There we are, calling it right now.
It's bold.
No, Invincibles.
Do you feel as confident as this as you do about 8 points?
Hull on 7. I mean, they've been struggling recently, so sorry, Hull. But yeah, Manchester City 3, Swansea 1, Invincibles. I mean, anyone argue?
Lose next week.
Ominous. No, I can't argue with it. Sterling, 4 goals and 5 assists in his last 6 games.
The most informed English player in the world right now.
It's worth knowing, actually, Tottenham play City in the next game.
Thanks, Jack. Cheers, mate.
Jack, we just said
Thanks for listening.
We just said
still
that,
looking for Allardyce updates, are we?
I was
right
actually.
Then. No, I'll tell you what you're doing. You're too busy tweeting Darren Huckabee. What are you doing?
Hey, you're just dropping down a tweet.
Darren Huckabee, hashtag follows me on Twitter.
I'm just wanting to follow me, Darren. Follow me.
Yeah,
Charlie, please.
What you do. Jack, what? Right, so I've just read the tweet to Darren Huckabee. Jack is asking Darren Huckabee to become England manager.
I mean, it can't be worse than Sam Allardyce, can it?
It can be. Just about. Right, we'll leave it there then. We'll wrap up the Premier League games. Let's then talk about Sam Allardyce, who it sounds like, as we record right now, has he actually officially gone, or is he offering his resignation?
No, he's not.
Everyone's tweeting
he's not officially gone.
He's offered his resignation with a 100% win record, and I've been sort of, I don't know. I was teasing this, I would say, on Twitter. There is only one man that will replace Sam Allardyce as England manager. There will be lots of names talked about, but believe me, there is only one man to take England to the World Cup, and that man will be Gareth Southgate. Enjoy the revolution.
The least inspiring.
He will be the man to get the job.
You know what's going to happen?
Tim Farron
he is like the Tim Farron of English. That's a great reference.
I want Pardew to leave Palace in a
Shut up. Stop it. I think Moyes should get it. Do a swap. But no, I think Allardyce will leave and Southgate will be getting the job. Under 21s,
it's all very weird.
Tim Southgate.
The whole thing.
Sorry.
So we should
more breaking news. Darren Huckabee replied to Jack saying "not corrupt enough" with a stick out tongue smiley face.
There we go. See. There we go. That's why I tweet Darren. Follow me, please, Darren.
We should talk a little bit about if anyone doesn't know, anyone overseas or hasn't been privy to this scandal that has erupted in the last 24 hours. I think the Telegraph announced that they would be publishing this investigation about this time last night, and obviously it doesn't look good for Allardyce because where was he at this point? With
a
these
Manchester restaurant. He had two
with some
meetings with them, each spanning around 2 hours.
Exactly, yeah, and he was, and he'd met with these undercover reporters posing as businessmen. Unbeknownst to him, was being videoed. And what is it he exactly sort of conspires to do, Jack?
£400,000 promotional deal to go to Singapore.
He's bored, boys. He's so bored. He spent his entire career in club management, and now he's bored. So he's like, I'll just have lunches and dinners, and I'll offer this. But this is the first time. Sorry about that. This isn't the first time that Allardyce has been thrown under the bus for controversy because he was arrived. He was. What's the word I'm looking for? He was accused of accepting bungs in the past.
10 years ago. Very. I linked you that story earlier, didn't I?
I you know what, when it came out, it's probably one of the first things I thought of. I very much remember that happening and the time in which it happened. And it kind of just been shoved onto the carpet. And now it turns out that he's involved in that sort of nonsense.
While it's important to say that he didn't actually agree to any of these sort of deals, and while they did bring up the issue of sort of bungs and third party ownership and that kind of thing, he was quite guarded about that. He didn't say anything really incriminating, but the whole saga, the whole episode is obviously catastrophic for his reputation. It made a lot of sort of not derogatory, but he kind of mocked Roy Hodgson's speech impediment, made some comments about Gary Neville, and just a few other things that Sam. Yeah, he did mention that as well, which is weird, but it's just the kind of thing that you expect a slightly tipsy Sam Allardyce to do, and it doesn't look good. It's not really the England manager
what the big
of anyone
is
should be
for
doing.
the FA with all of this, and the reason they've had to let him go now is because they can give him they've got to react quickly to the way that this story's broken by the Telegraph. But if they give him a slap on the wrist or they give him a warning and he comes out and apologises, we don't really know how much more the Telegraph have on it, because it's that kind of media story where it'll slowly leak out. They slowly, over the course of a week or two, reveal more and more details, maybe bring in a few other managers' names and kind of muddy the waters even further. Yeah. And the FA can't really win here, because if they kind of let Sam Allardyce run with it and then something else big comes out and then they sack him, or something comes out that they absolutely have to sack him for, they're screwed. But you cannot trust Sam Allardyce to be straight with you after what's come out about him.
It would be a gamble.
As much as I don't rate the FA and their decision making, I actually think they've made the right decision here and just getting it done now.
Well, they're put in the most uncomfortable position, probably one of the most uncomfortable positions they've ever been in, probably since Glenn Hoddle, to be honest. Which was worse, but based on what he said, which was absolutely abhorrent. The fact that it's surprising, actually, that I know it was a long time ago, but it's surprising he works in football. I know he apologised and whatnot, but it was pretty horrendous. The thing seems to be with Allardyce is that he's not understanding the responsibility of an England manager. There could be a lot thrown at Hodgson for being a bit of an incapable idiot, but he would never have been, I'd like to think anyway, would never have been caught up in something along these lines. And
definitely.
There's a certain responsibility when you're England manager that you have to accept that is your job, and essentially that is your job. There's no let's go do this, let's go try this, let's fly to Singapore for a day. And I'd say that he's left the FA in the most uncomfortable and impossible position. If he didn't resign, it'd be sacked, because as the employers, they can't have him saying the things he said, and as
Jack said, they can't gamble that.
I think there'll be more that comes out. I think there'll be more managers
pulled
into. I think there's been 10 managers so far who've come out and said they were contacted by the same journalists. Obviously, Nigel Pearson has been suspended by Derby today. Now, I don't want to suggest that they're two very similar managers, and it could be something completely unrelated. But Nigel Pearson's the kind of manager who would fall for a sting.
Well, This is the kind of situation that could be very damaging for English football in terms of reputation.
It's been a 10-month investigation as well, so this is going back a long way before Sam Allardyce was England manager, and you wonder how deep it goes, and if this is just kind of the initial explosion almost, and there's going to be a chain reaction now where we hear more and more about this.
What's interesting is it lasting 10 months is that obviously, based on the recorded footage from the Telegraph, is that they'd already planned, he'd becoming the manager, and then they approached him. Now, whether they'd approached him before that, when he was manager of Sunderland, I don't know. That'll be interesting.
I've seen a great tweet. Can I read it out?
Is it from Darren?
No. I've retweeted it, and people are retweeting it, so I know it must be funny. The Chilean miners who were stuck in a mine, they were stuck in a mine 2 days longer than Sam Allardyce was England manager.
Where's this going?
That's quite funny, in a way.
There you go, facts.
Right then, thanks, Jack. Yeah, that summed it up really. We'll go to the question of the week. The question this week was: if you had an hour with Sam Allardyce, what do you think you could get him to admit to? Jack, have you got an answer for this? You might want to throw in there.
Have I?
Do you know who I feel sorry for, by the way? Sammy Lee. I feel sorry for Sammy Lee in all of this. He's done nothing to deserve this.
I know what I could.
He'll be without a job. Go on, Jack. What's your point?
I could get him to admit to using the FM real-time editor.
No way. I've never seen that happen before, so that'd be a first.
I think I can get him to admit to it. Break him.
Interesting narrative. Kino, what would you get?
Sorry?
If you had an hour with Allardyce, what would you think?
I didn't realise we were being asked.
What do you think?
I was looking.
What do you think you could get him to be admitting to?
I don't know. Honestly, don't know. Can I read my favourite tweet from the
Sure.
The listeners are
I'll
funnier than
me
me and Callum, so
Oh, without a doubt. My favourite one is from John T. Tengwall, who says he'd admit to being the biological father of Kevin Nolan.
That wins. That is the best answer. I mean, I'm going to...
Started on a high.
I'm going to retweet that one. We've got a couple of Harambe-related ones, which we won't read out.
Yeah, few Harambe ones. It wouldn't be complete without
he'll admit that he's just been overcompensating with the name Big Sam, which I quite like.
It's a good one as well.
As in, he's not actually Big Sam, it's deep down.
Peter Whitehead comes in with one that he'd admit that you should be nominated for the best podcast.
Yes, he's absolutely
award.
right. Sorry, Jack. Jack's the second Jack, so I didn't say that was your one. But that's a very good one, Kino. Who was that? Sorry.
Peter Whitehead, and I can't agree with Big Sam on many things, but I agree with him on
imagine if
one.
he was taking but maybe we should offer some advice to Bong, see if we can get his support for the vote for the FBAs.
Do we have 400 grand lying around? I think there's some left over from the Charlie Austin appeal.
YouTube money and all that, the Charlie Austin appeal. Let's see, we've got a few others here as well.
He'd admit to, this is from Dan Rimmer, admits to having a wild night in Thailand with Leicester. Now, you said that there might be a Nigel Pearson connection. So maybe that's what it's about. I didn't know that Pearson had been suspended.
4 hours before their game tonight,
that
so it must be serious. Although I know there's been a few off-the-pitch stuff, kind of incidents going on there, so it might be completely unrelated. It's fun to speculate.
That comes as standard with Pearson, doesn't it? Ex-Greggles says that he'd admit to secretly hiring a hitman for Chico Flores, who we haven't seen, who disappeared off the face
Chico Flores
of
went
the
to
earth.
Qatar and did a tweet today, being like, ha ha ha, ha ha ha.
That is one of my favourite football moments.
So he might...
But yeah, Chico Flores basically did a picture with himself smoking a doobie with a gold chain around his neck, being like the deal with it guy. Chico Flores tweeted that.
Of course he
it wasn't
did.
like he retweeted it. He tweeted that out. I'd like to think he made it.
That is incredible. I've just retweeted it on
This is a good one based on the fact we've got that picture of Allardyce where he's looking up at the fish and chips. That curry's better than fish and chips. Can you imagine? He spends an hour and all of a sudden he just breaks down and goes, all right, fine, I prefer a curry.
Do you prefer gravy or
like
curry sauce on your chips?
Neither.
You just
Don't be wrong with
just
chips.
ketchup
Absolutely
or
not.
just...
No, maybe a little bit of mayonnaise, vinegar, salt. Standard. I'm not trying to make it exotic.
I mean, is there that much exotic about putting curry sauce on chips? That's a Sam Allardyce thing, and I don't think Sam Allardyce is exotic.
Sam Allardyce thinks it's exotic, though.
I'd like. We're having a foreign cuisine. What are we having? We're having chips. Well, that sounds pretty British with curry sauce.
We got the curry sauce. Yeah.
Party time. Right, I think that brings us to the end of the show, boys. Thank you for your questions at ForTheFans Show. Your answers, sorry, at ForTheFans Show. Keep an eye out next week. We'll be doing it all over again. Yes, boys. Have you enjoyed today's show? It's been a nice chat.
Action packed. We've had
more live reporting than ever before.
Thank you,
I'll
Paul
that much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Paul Joyce. Thank you, Darren Huckabee, for being a part of today.
This show was brought to you by Darren Huckabee and Paul Joyce.
The thank yous.
Blimey, why are we doing the credits? What's going on
This
here?
isn't a film.
At ForTheFans Show on Twitter, youtube.com/ForTheFans Show, ForTheFansShow.com. Of course, we're on iTunes and we're not on Facebook, are we? But SoundCloud, we are also on there. As I say, if you've enjoyed the show and you're listening on YouTube, please do leave a like and feel free to share the podcast round. Thank you again for voting in the FBAs. We do appreciate your support. If there's sort of a follow-up vote, which I think there might be, we'll let you know on how you can get involved and help us out with that.
And if we win, you'll
I've promised the entire show of features. Basically just a quiz night. Bloody hell. Right.
The ForTheFans quiz night.
Right then, that brings us to the end. With love, with care, from Kino. Say bye. Okay,
Good evening.
Fine. And Jack.
Thank you.
We've been ForTheFans. Until next time, with love, with care. We'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection.
Kino, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.